Welcome to episode number 338 of the Marine Layer podcast. We welcome on Seattle Times Mariners beat writer and recurring guest Ryan Divish to talk about the Mariners offseason, rumors he heard from the winter meetings, and which players he thinks will bounce back on the Mariners 2026 roster. We'll also tie up some loose ends of that conversation and an idea Lyle had when it comes to adding to the Mariners offense.
Well, there may be two ideas. We'll get to that. A reminder to you guys, stay on top of all of our stuff. The best way you can do so is if you go over to our website, marinelayerpod.com. You can find all of our stuff from our merch, which TJ's wearing right now. You can go get yourself some merch with the holiday season right here. Patreon, that's over at our website, marinelayerpod.com. All our episodes are there too. And then you can check us out across social media at marinelayerpod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. 1-1 from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording here on Tuesday afternoon, December 16th. Before we jump into our conversation with the great Ryan Divish, as always, lots of really good information. Lyle, you have some ideas.
I have some ideas. Do we want to start with, you know what, I'll save the crazy thing for after this. Let me spend a minute here getting semi-serious about what the Mariners could do with their left-handed heavy roster right now. We don't have to spend too much time on this, but I put it out on social media earlier this week, and I just talked about with the ideas floating around the Mariners right now and all the left-handed bats they have and the potential of acquiring more with somebody like Brendan Donovan. I said they probably need some sort of right-handed hitter that can crush lefties to even out the roster a little bit, just so you have somebody to, it doesn't even necessarily have to be Platoon, just to put in the lineup when a lefty's on the mound. So I threw out a couple names, and I'm not tied to any of them necessarily all that tightly, but I think it's fair to say the Mariners probably need some right-handed hitter, right?
Yes, they do, because especially if they're going to go out and get Donovan, it would be lefty at first, lefty at second, lefty at short, potentially a lefty at third if that's Colt Emerson, your catcher switch hits, and then your outfield, I mean, you have a righty and left, you have a righty and center, and then you'd have, I guess, depending on who, you have two left-handed options in right field, and you have one right-handed option. So, yeah, pretty lefty-heavy. Right.
So you don't have to spend crazy money on one of these right-handed bats that you could put on the bench. But there's some names out there from Rob Refsnyder, who we threw out the other day, to Andy Ibanez, if you more want a specific infielder that's a right-handed hitter and can hit lefties. Miguel Andujar would be another who, he doesn't really play second base, so maybe that throws a wrench into that idea. But he plays third, first, left field, DH, and he really hits left-handed pitching. So pick your poison. Of those few guys, I think the Mariners could absolutely afford to spend $1.5 million to $2 million on one of those guys on a one-year deal, just to make sure you have a way to balance out all the lefties in the lineup a bit.
Who does this bounce? Does this bounce Mastro because he's a lefty? Or if you don't want to bounce Mastro because he can play all over the place and utility players are valuable. And even if Andujar plays multiple positions, he's not exactly a utility player. He's not going to be great at all of those positions. At least I don't think so. Would you bump Ben Williamson because he only plays third? Like, what do you do? But he's a righty, right? You need more righties.
Yeah, it feels like it would be Mastroboni, maybe Williamson, although you're probably going to need Williamson on the roster to play third base, especially at the start of the year. So it feels to me like It's either Mastroboni or in this sequence of trades and acquisitions that you make throughout the offseason remaining, that one of your left-handed bats may just get traded as a result.
So Canzona, really?
Somebody like that. Because, yeah, those guys don't hit left-handed pitching at all.
I mean, unless you were to throw one of your prospects into a trade package, but then we're talking bigger names, and then the situation changes. Like if they were to go acquire, someone like we'll talk about on Friday's episode, Nico Horner. I mean, right-handed bat, plays a position in need, and then all of a sudden, Cole Young is a little more expendable at that point. So, yeah, I mean, there's certainly options here. I don't hate that idea. I think it does make your roster a little stiff. There is value to having a utility player, and if you were to have no utility players on your roster, because if I'm doing some quick roster math here, you wouldn't have one.
You'd have Leo Rivas.
Even okay, well, sure.
Yeah. And if you're very specific about wanting an infielder for this, that's what Ibanez would be, because he plays all over the infield, and he'd hit lefties.
So what, you'd have you'd have 5 outfielders, 5 infielders, because you'd have the 4 and then Ibanez. And, well, where would there be room for Leo Rivas? It's like of the 12 position players. Or I guess, no, you had 13. So, yeah, wait, no, there would be room for Leo. Okay,
yeah.
I can do math. Math here live on the Marine Layer Pod, as always. 5 outfielders, Randy, Julio, Dom, Rayleigh, Robles. 5. Infielders, let's say Ben, JP. Are we trading for Donovan or Nico Horner in this situation?
Sure, let's say Donovan.
Okay, Brendan Donovan, Naylor, Ibanez.
Ibanez, Cole Young. Well, Cole Young.
So that's 6. You're at 11, and then you have your
Cal,
2 catchers.
Yeah, and Cal and Kisner. That's 13.
Okay, but there's no Leo Rivas there.
Oh, good point. Okay, so maybe you wouldn't. Yeah, I guess that makes your roster a little stiff.
Now, Nico Horner could, or Brendan Donovan, it then becomes your quasi-utility player, which is fine. Yeah. It's perfectly okay to have one of your starting players be a utility player if he's good at it.
Right.
And as we highlighted, Donovan's fine at these positions. His bat translates all over, but his glove, it's fine.
Yeah. So he would move around depending on where you want your right-handed bat to be. Again, if you more want an outfielder, it'd probably be Refsnyder. If you more want an infielder, it'd be Ibanez. And Duhar, you could just decide. Yeah, I'm not tied to any of those guys that heavily, but just somebody that can hit lefties.
Do you think adding Refsnyder and having a little bit more of a roster crunch is a better idea than seeing if Victor Robles has it, hitting right-handed? Refsnyder's a little more reliable against lefties, but
he crushes righties.
He does.
Lefties.
He does. You're already paying Victor Robles $5 million next year.
Although he hasn't hit left-handed pitching since really 2023, and his really good year in 24, he had total platoon splits. He crushed righties and didn't hit lefties. And then this past year, in a small sample, didn't hit lefties either.
But that does not mean they're not going to put him in the lineup regardless against lefties.
They might, but I'd like somebody a little more reliable that's done it more recently.
Then does he have? Then I would ask you, is he going to be on the roster? Are they going to cut him? Or are they going to trade him?
This is why I still feel like one of those left-handed bats has a shot to get traded.
Sure.
Because I don't.
Very well might be. If they're going to try and get Horner or Donovan, it'd be an easy throw-in.
Right. Because I don't think Robles is going anywhere.
Or Ketel Marte, which is a different situation because Ketel won't play in the field as much.
Yeah. All right. I did just want to flesh that out a little bit for people because I do think it's something to think about that with all these left-handed bats available and all the left-handed bats they already have on the roster, that you should probably at least consider the idea of adding a right-handed bat. So I just wanted to talk that through a little bit. I did have one more thing I wanted to get to, but I do just want to say quickly to everybody listening and watching, if you haven't already, please make sure you go like, comment, and hit subscribe on YouTube if you're watching. It really supports the channel if you do. And if you're listening, go rate and review these podcast episodes 5 stars and go download the episodes. It is seriously a huge help if you go do that. Okay. Let's not even beat around the bush. Let's just crank up the heat. We paid an Etsy witch to bring Kyle Tucker to the Mariners.
I'm proud of us. The Mariners are 1 for 1 on Etsy witch curses in the year 2025, or curses or blessings or however you want to label it. We're looking to make it 2 for 2.
Well, because guess what? Anybody can get lucky once. If these Etsy witches want to prove that they're for real, they're going to make this happen. And by the way, in the notes that we got back for it, it says, if you don't notice changes in your life over the next 6 to 8 weeks, please contact us. Good. I'm glad we got that info. If Kyle Tucker's not wearing a Mariners uniform by the time spring training rolls around, we're asking for our money back.
Yes. All the money we spent on it. Yes. A real expensive amount we spent.
Well, we spent money. We spent money on it. We paid our hard-earned dollars for that.
Just want the entire Mariners fan base, the front office, the players, Everyone else on all other teams that listen to us, we did our part in getting Kyle Tucker to Seattle.
Dude, again, especially around the holiday time, people wish for things and dream on things and hope for things to happen all the time. You think we weren't serious about this Kyle Tucker thing? We've taken matters into our own hands to do something about it. By the way, you know who does hit left-handed pitching? Kyle Tucker. Anyway, we've taken matters into our own hands to do something about it. Not everybody does that. I've got a big laundry list of things I've now done and said I'd do for this man. Hike Mailbox Peak, spend actual money to try and get his services.
You haven't hiked Mailbox Peak yet, but you will if he does.
I'm saying it's on my list of to-do if he is acquired. Mm-hmm. But all these things, I've said I'd do this ridiculous hike, which I hate hiking. We paid actual money. We're trying to swing our belief into witches online. We've done a lot. You think we don't want this man in Seattle? We've done a hell of a lot. And
we've convinced people that the Mariners now have pinstripe uniforms based on the AI image of K-Tuck and a Mariners uniform we got.
Oh, dude. I didn't even tell you. I'll just do it right now and here while we're recording for everybody to hear.
In the trust tree.
Against my better judgment, I should really never do this, but it had been a while, so I just thought for shits and gigs I'd do it. I went on to Mariners Reddit the other day just to see what was going on there. And a few days ago, there's a post that says, Kyle Tucker at Mariners Airport, ? And I click on it, and it says, I saw the guys from the Marine Layer podcast mention that they saw Kyle Tucker at SeaTac Airport. I can't tell if they're being serious or not, but I did just want to throw this out there and see if anybody else might have seen him or if anybody else can decipher this. It was probably 12 days ago as of time of recording. I look it up and I was like, no way. This is a real post on Mariners Reddit.
I found it. Here we go. Not sure the guys on the Marine Layer podcast are trolling. But I saw a post on X from them about an hour ago at SeaTac Airport, and they were suggesting they may have seen Kyle Tucker at the airport. That aligns with a direct flight from Tampa to Seattle on Delta Airlines flight 1090 that would have arrived at about 10:30 a.m. today. Kyle Tucker lives in Tampa. Has anyone heard anything more concrete about Tucker being in Seattle today? And then someone responded with that image of the meme that people always use of the guy at the Hertz counter, where it's like, oh, I spotted X person at the airport. Look.
Uh-huh.
And it's the dude in dreads.
Yeah.
And then someone responds, you silly, that's Richard Sherman.
We've really done it this time. Again, look at all these things we've done for this man. Etsy witches, hikes, look.
Oh God, dog! Oh my God, this is great. This is a great comment. I have to read it to you.
All right, but I was just gonna say, looking for him in the airport and say, even putting out reports that we've seen him in the airport. We're dead serious about getting this man to Seattle. Dead serious.
Ugh, I can't stand this podcast. Same guys who were convinced Ohtani was coming to Seattle on a 1-year, $80 million deal the same offseason the payroll got slashed. Where we ironically got the report from
Reddit.
Yeah. Lots of ball players pass through SeaTac on their way to Driveline. Now that's a fair point. The answer is always Driveline. Players go every offseason to Driveline, specifically Seattle one because it's the flagship location. Must be a layover on his flight into LA or something. This is great.
Look at all this media storm we've caused over the last 2 years about Kyle Tucker, to the point where I wonder if he's seen any of it. Probably not on Reddit, but just any of it, period.
Oh, this is great. Thank you for putting me onto this. This is great.
Oh, it's great.
There's a lot of comments on here.
Uh-huh. There's a lot. But I will say, to anybody that doubted us, that thought we were not serious about getting Kyle Tucker and you thought it was all a running joke, oh no, we're serious. We've now ponied up our own money to get this man. So yeah. You're still reading?
I don't know how the pinstripe Mariners jersey didn't just give it away.
that it doesn't give it away that it's total AI, that the Mariners don't wear pinstripe jerseys.
Or the fact you cut out a photo of it. Not only was the photo AI, but you just did a rolling picture of SeaTac with a cutout image of Kyle Tucker on top of it. It was moving no shit, it's not Kyle Tucker.
And the photo is huge that we put of him inside that SeaTac picture. It's not like he's actually casually standing there. The photo's huge. It doesn't look natural.
Oh, God, I love the internet.
It's great. All right.
Maybe we should have asked Ryan Divish if that photo of Kyle Tucker looked realistic.
Yeah.
Do you think we actually saw him?
Nothing's better than messing with Divish with stuff like that. How long do you think his patience would have been if we spent 15 minutes of this podcast interview with him, talking to him about if he thinks we actually saw Kyle Tucker in the airport or not?
He would have hung up on us.
Probably, yeah.
So anyway, we didn't do this, but the best way to get Divish to go roll his eyes at us would be to just first question. It's so Ryan, we had we had a great time at the winter meetings. While we were heading down there, we saw Kyle Tucker at SeaTac. Can you confirm that report?
Yep. It's oh, you didn't get the scoop first? That's pretty sad. You must have not been on it.
Now, fortunately for all of our listeners, we did ask him real questions about the Mariners offseason. Very little trolling going on in this interview.
Yeah, not too much. But it was a good interview as always, which is why we love to have Divish on. I will say, quick word before that interview starts from our friends over at Pagach's Pub 85, which you guys know, it's an awesome spot over in Kirkland, a friendly neighborhood bar that you can watch a bunch of games at with 20 TVs in the place. There's great food. There's games like pool and darts. And if you go during happy hour, drink specials, well, they're $3 and $4 from Monday through Friday and 2 to 6 p.m. Yeah, they're great deals, you guys. Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 p.m. happy hours that are $3 and $4. That's all over at Pagach's Pub 85 in Kirkland. Now, I will say, before we get to the interview, stick around after, too, because there is a lot we want to kind of dissect on our own and react to in terms of what he said. So we're going to do that when this interview's over.
We won't keep you guys any longer. Let's get you to the interview with Ryan Divish. All right, we've got recurring guest and Seattle Times Mariners beat writer Ryan Divish on with us. Ryan, as always, thank you for taking some time for us. We were just all in Orlando for the winter meetings, and I'm curious for you as we've gotten to dip our foot in the winter meetings pool a little bit over the last couple of years. Who's the person you always look forward to talking to the most when you go there every year?
Oh, you mean another writer, or do you mean
it could be anybody. Someone you don't get to see all the time because they don't live up here.
I don't know. I really Pass and I are pretty good friends, so I always like seeing Pass, and we text all the time. And so I like seeing him because we make fun of the same people quite a bit. Andy McCullough of The Athletic, just a group of friends, Dan Hayes of The Athletic. I have a lot of buddies that I've been covering the game with for a long time. A lot of them work for different places, and so we usually see each other at the winter meetings, the GM meetings, winter meetings, or the All-Star game. And then even sometimes the postseason. So it's always fun seeing those guys. Obviously, there's some scouts that I talk to and use in terms of sourcing for players, on players, especially prospects and stuff. So catch up with them. That's always cool. I don't know. That's usually about it. Some of the other writers have it probably a little more difficult in terms of access to the GM or their president of baseball operations, but Jerry and Justin are pretty readily available for the beat writers. They're not going to tell us everything, but they will respond to us, if we have questions or stuff like that. So it's I don't know. Winter meetings are crazy. I think I told you guys, my first one was 2008 in Las Vegas at the Bellagio. And that was the year that Jack Sorenzik, his first year, he traded J.J. Putz in a 9-player deal that sent Jason Vargas and Franklin Gutierrez back to the Mariners. So it was kind of it was a rip the Band-Aid off moment for me, that's for certain.
How do you make your time in with Passan at the winter meetings? Because I was joking with TJ that when you watch him walk around that hotel, he's like the Beatles of the winter meeting. For every single person wants their 60 seconds plus with him.
Yeah, usually it's just late at night at the bar, more than anything. It's not during the day when he's working. Honestly, the best part about the winter meetings and where so much of the stuff gets taken care of is at the end of the night when you're at the bar and everybody's having beers and BS, and that's where you hear a lot of the really good rumors and gossip. I mean, I'm not going to be like Heyman and Morosi and Rosenthal working the hallways out there trying to mine stuff from every agent or scout that passes by. That's not what I'm hired to do. I mean, I do my fair share of work and stuff like that, but like in terms of talking to people. But yeah, it's at the end of the night, another person I would really like to see when I'm there is Jeff Sullivan, former Lookout Landing writer and now works for the Rays as an analyst. Always like seeing him. I usually see him once or twice a year, so it's always fun to catch up with him because he's super smart, he's really funny, and then again too, like the Mariners always make a lot of trades with the Rays, so he usually has a pretty good background on players.
I'll say another reason I feel like it would be tough for you to do Heyman or Rosenthal's job is we walked past John Heyman a couple times. I think it was on the first night I really noticed this. It's 1:15 in the morning. He's wide awake. He's got his jacket on. He's sitting in the chair and he's sipping water. He's been sipping water all night. I don't really think that would be you, right?
No, he never really turns off the transactional reporting stuff. And, that's just not me. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. I'd love to have Paston's paycheck, but doing what he does and how hard that is and having to talk to so many people, I don't want any part of that at all. I just do not. So, I guess, like I said, I'd like the paycheck, but not for what comes with it. If I had to make that much money, if I could make that much money doing something else other than what Jeff did, I would probably do that, including digging ditches and picking rocks.
AK, you couldn't pay you a number to be a people person?
No. I mean, I think you guys both know that I'm not really a people person in general. I mean, I'm not, a lot of people think I'm a dick, but I try and be pleasant, but my default nature isn't to be outgoing or anything. I'll be friendly if you interact with me or if you give me a reason to, but I'm not going to seek you out just to catch up more often than not.
So a lot of what was going down at the winter meetings, a lot of it didn't pertain to Mariners. I'd say most of what came out of the winter meetings for the Mariners was some leads, some ideas, and some things that have been pushed further here the week after the winter meetings. Where would you say the Mariners are at right now in terms of their offseason?
Well, I think they're in a pivot mode, honestly. Hold on. I'm sorry. I do think that they thought they were going to get both Naylor and Polanco, just given kind of the nature of what they thought the market would be like, the players' interest in remaining there. And I think they thought that was going to happen. And then, we saw last week where Polanco signs for 2 years at $40 million. I don't think the Mariners were expecting that. I know I wasn't. And, now they have to readjust. But I think also, given kind of how Jerry talked about it when we talked to him one of the nights, and he just said, we have to cast a wider net. We've made our offer. They know where we're at. I think they knew that it was maybe trending away from them, and they were starting to push more on the Brendan Donovan trade possibility or even explore or get more realistic about trading for Ketel Marte. They looked at where the free agent market was headed. I'm sure they heard some stuff on what Polanco was receiving from other teams, and they started to move in a different direction, understanding that what they had probably offered wasn't going to get home for them. And I don't know, Jerry can be, by reputation, a little rigid in terms of when it comes to negotiating. He's not just going to go bounce back and forth and, try and get into a bidding contest. They have a number. They have some wiggle room within the number, but they aren't going to go crazy for something that they don't think the value returns. It's not quite the whole it's not quite the whole Andrew Friedman where, if you're cautious in free agency or whatever it is, you're always going to finish third. I think there's just a point of what's realistic and a point of where, that's not worth it to us. And so, I don't know. I think they really liked having Polanco back. I thought there were some red flags with him. It came with him. And maybe in the end, they're fortunate that he didn't want to sign, and they can go into different avenues and explore some different options and maybe make them better as a whole.
Was it the injuries and the DH factor that would be your red flags, or was there more?
Well, I think it's the injuries always. I mean, he put up great numbers because he played more games than he probably had since 2021, I think. So the injuries are always there. As somebody who's, dealt with a lot of knee injuries over the years, you can have the surgery. The surgery doesn't fix everything. There's still damage there. And we saw even then, like, he was dinged up quite a bit off and on, the oblique stuff, the knee stuff. I think that's always a red flag. He's not getting any younger. So, and really, positionally, he's limited. I know they played him at second base there towards the end of last year, but he's not an everyday second baseman. I mean, the Mets don't want him as an everyday second baseman. I think where it was trending, they were going to play him at second base some, but you're going to play him at DH a whole lot. And I think they just, at some point, like $20 million over 2 years or $40 million over 2 years seems excessive. But the Mets were in a position where they had a lot of money, and two, they had just lost their starting first baseman. I think for the Mariners, if you put it in order, and we saw that, Naylor was the priority. They wanted Polanco back, but they wanted him back on terms that were more friendly to them, or more realistic to them than maybe what the market ended up being. And the market was reactionary because Alonso signed, he didn't sign with the Mets. I mean, like, Alonso signs with the Mets, maybe the Mariners get Polanco on a different deal, because, it changes all the math there. And I don't think, the Orioles are going to give Polanco $40 million over 2 years. I don't think they were going to do that.
Hypothetically, if the Mariners had matched that Mets offer, would they have had budget to not only add the rest of the offseason, but potentially add at the deadline as well? That would have put them, I think, right at the mark they ended last year at, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, they would have. I mean, there's some wiggle room there. I've heard conflicting reports, but at the GM meetings, I was told that from some agents that really the Mariners had a little bit more than what they finished with last year. Or maybe that's based on some of their arbitration projections or what they were going to do. But, yeah, it would put them right up against it. The thing is like they were at their budget limit going into the trade deadline, and they asked Stanton and the ownership group for more money so they could get both Naylor and Suarez, and ownership, agreed to it. I mean, I think the budget is like the payroll budget. It's not like they don't have a shock collar on Jerry that once he gets over, he just gets zapped or, he thinks about it. Like it's organic in a way. Like if they feel like there's something that they need to do or a move that needs to be made and they can sell it to the ownership group, then the budget increases. It's like, I think that's where people think, oh, they're so limited. But you don't want to make a habit of doing it all the time either. You want to be smart. And I don't know. It's a weird spot that they're in. So I was thinking about this today. They don't get Polanco. Marte actually comes in at less money per year than what Polanco's getting. He gets more expensive 3 years down the road. Brendan Donovan, obviously not a ton of money. I don't know if there's a world where they get both because the prospect capital will be too high. But, there isn't a possibility where they get Donovan and they still have some money to go out and maybe get more of a DH type to supplement. They could do that. So I don't know. I'm really curious. I haven't got it locked down on what teams are asking. I don't think that Brendan Donovan is going to cost, proven major league talent for the Mariners. I don't know that that's what the Cardinals are really looking for. But, the Diamondbacks want a major league pitcher. And I don't think, I think they'd prefer to have Kirby. And that's where the Mariners have to get either they unload a whole bunch of prospects and try to avoid giving up the major league guy, or they give it up and then trust that they're pitching, and maybe they sign a number 5 starter type if they don't trust Logan or Emerson Hancock.
Man, there's a lot of ways we could pivot off that. All right, let's just let's start on Ketel Marte here, since you brought him up first.
Yeah.
Is the package that the Diamondbacks are looking for, in your eyes, is that worth it for the Mariners to do? And I'll just throw out this example. Nick Picoro of the Arizona Republic a few days ago mentioned that the Rays and the Diamondbacks were talking about a trade, and he reported that a couple of the names being floated out there were Shane Baz and Ryan Pepiot, which is two big league starters. So is it worth it to you with Marte's age and what he could trend to be in the next couple of years to give it all up for him?
I mean, is it worth it if you win it this year or next year? Because that's where you're at. Because 2 years from now, they got to make a tough decision on Logan Gilbert. I mean, they haven't signed him to an extension yet, and so we've seen some pitcher attrition. I mean, for what Luis Castillo is or was this past season, every year it gets a little bit more difficult to replicate that. So, yeah, I mean, 2 MLB starters, yeah, that's a lot. I mean, I guess in your, I think Kirby's better than Shane Baz just because Baz has so many injury issues. So what do you, if you're going along those lines, would you do it for George Kirby and Logan Evans? And then
I think the giving up the big league starters part is what you have to balance, right? And part of it probably balances on, do you think Kirby's going to sign an extension? You can dive in on this too. I mean, I think
I was going to say,
no on Kirby, but
is it just those two, or is it those two and prospects?
I don't know. I mean, 2 big league players, it's a considerable amount. I mean, the prospect would have to be, if you're throwing in Felnine or something like that, a guy that's far away. It's not an MLB ready guy to contribute right now, I think, in that regard. I don't know how they view Girangelo, how close he is or somebody like that. Maybe that's what they want. So what if it's Kirby and Girangelo and a prospect? That's the hard part. Like, the one thing is like, there's still, if you look at the starting pitching market, there's a lot of like number 5 types that you can sign to a 1-year deal. And then you sign them to a 1-year deal and you have, because there's no such thing as a bad 1-year contract. So then you have a veteran guy as your 5th, you have Emerson or whoever, plus you still have Ryan Sloan and Kate Anderson trying to get ready to be big league ready this year. I mean, is there a chance that Ryan Sloan debuts this year? Certainly. I mean, that's pushing it on the extreme side, but that gets you through so that when Sloan and Cade or even Girangelo is ready to replace George or Logan, you have that in place. So I don't know. It's a weird deal. Like, would you rather overpay in prospects than big league guys? Because again, you're trying to win. It's funny. Ketel's only 1 year younger than Jorge Polanco. Mm-hmm. And he played in less games than Polanco did last year. He wants the DH more. He doesn't want to play in the field. He's not good in the field. And I mean, the reporting and the complaints coming out of Arizona, I mean, that's real. There were complaints about Ketel when he was here. So it's like, do you believe your culture in your clubhouse is strong enough to make sure that, you keep everything in check? I don't know. I mean, Randy was always sort of a loose cannon when he came here, and I think that experiment's worked pretty well. I mean, he still does some goofy stuff, but, I think that's what they have to weigh. Like, you're going to, not only with Ketel, you're investing in a major league player, most likely, prospects, and a lot of money that could preclude you from signing some of the other guys in your organization to extensions. So you better be damn sure. And I'm sure they're going to call Josh Naylor and say, hey, what do you think? You were there when all this went down. What is your take on this guy? And I think we all know that Naylor doesn't really sugarcoat things when he feels like talking about it.
Well, I'd say the number one thing for me when it comes about Ketel Marte is the extension thing with your starting pitchers, because if George Kirby is like a flat out no on signing an extension, like, that is the most valuable trade piece you have. It's not your prospects. It's a guy who can throw 200 innings and be an all-star pitcher in the big leagues. And if you're going to have to trade him anyways, you might as well go get Ketel Marte. I will say, though, Ryan, like, we asked about Ketel's character down at the winter meetings as well, and, like, we essentially had a red flag raised, right? And that I feel like for the Mariners, and I feel like, you could tell me if I'm wrong, have been pretty consistent that they like high character guys in their clubhouse and when they're acquiring. They're not just looking at talent; they're looking at, they're looking at the character of that, and they made some mistakes, and they've seemingly corrected it with like Winker and so on and so forth. Do you feel like that's accurate when it comes to the price they would give up?
They're valuing the character aspect, the character component more because of what went wrong with Winker. Some of those other guys that they brought in that just didn't fit. They don't want to have the 1 year of somebody miserable and then get rid of them. I think, you wonder, like I said, is the clubhouse culture strong enough to grab this guy and bring him in and say, okay, no, this is how we do it here? Because it's not like he's lazy. He puts in the work. I don't know that he's the hardest worker in the room from what I have been told, but he does the stuff and everything. But the questions of taking too many days off and kind of being absent mentally when he's thinking about other stuff, or being, kind of embittered at times. I mean, that's stuff you have to trust your scouting, your pro scouting. And the Mariners, when beefed up their pro scouting to kind of check in on that. I mean, like, the number of pro scouts that call me asking about what guys are like and how they treat others, not just the media, but how they treat clubbies, how they treat staff, how they treat each other, is invaluable. So I think the Mariners are going to do their due diligence. You're right. If Kirby's going to be gone in a year or two, you're going to have to trade him. Maybe that's a decision you make. I mean, Logan's the one that's closest to free agency now. And, usually with a pitcher, this is the year you get the extension done, right? Usually it's this year, I think. Either you get it done early and buy out all the arbitration time, and then you pretty much assume that they're going to miss 1 year because of injury. Like, now you have to figure it out because his arbitration number is going to go up, and he's got one more next year at what? Like, if he's going to make 12 this year, it'll be like 16. I mean, like, it gets real expensive. That's going to be a hard conversation because I think the catcher kind of likes Logan, so it's like you trade him or whatever, you run the risk of pissing off your franchise guy too.
But if we sit on him, what are you going to get back for Logan Gilbert next year? That's what the
Tigers are wrestling with right now, with a heck of a lot more established pitcher.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what the Mariners have in a way. I don't know if you're Logan, don't you just wait it out? Look what Dylan Cease got in free agency.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you're George Kirby and you're 2 years away from free agency or whatever it is, wait it out, and you can get to New York and go back home and get how much money from the Mets or the Yankees? I mean, like, that's the free agent pitchers, the incentive for, if you're even a pretty strong free agent pitcher. Look at Max Fried. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know that, because those guys are 2 years out, I don't know that the whole labor stoppage thing is providing an impetus to sign him. Honestly, like, if Logan Gilbert was going to resign with the Mariners to sign an extension, don't you think it had already been done? They were able to get it done with. They were able to get it done with Castillo in 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
I was going to say, where do you think they're at with that, with Logan? Because obviously he's been public in the past saying he'd love to be here a long time. Now, words obviously don't mean everything by any stretch. So where do you think they stand with that these days?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything more about any contact. But then again, like, leading into last year, I didn't hear a ton of stuff from Cal about contact. I mean, like, he had said that the discussions had started a little bit more once he switched agents.
Mm-hmm.
And, Logan's agents Logan isn't a Boris guy. I think it's Jet Sports. It's the same guys that handled Kyle Seager. So I don't know. I mean, like, when Logan was in AAA or his rookie year, I was told they supposedly made an extension offer, trying to lock him up early. It wasn't like Evan White, but it was, I don't know, 35, 40 million or something like that over 6 years or something. And he was kind of like, nah. And, guys that are first round picks that are established like that, it just doesn't happen very often. And like, to be honest, Logan lives in Orlando. He's far away from home. So, if they, of all the pitchers, I always felt like Bryce would be the one that would sign extension.
In his rookie year, why would a guy turn down an extension like that? Because you're not losing any free agent years, are you? Would that be buying out where first, like, you're just 6-year clock?
Yeah, I mean, like, because you're buying it out, you're probably getting a signing bonus, and I don't know how it was, but it was a longer one. It might have been 8 years or something, but it was a longer one with some extension stuff too. Like, the base was like $40 million though. It's just, I guess it's just different. It's what guys think. I mean, Jerry Kelnick supposedly had a deal that was better than Luis Robert, but not quite Ronald Acuna, and he felt like he deserved Acuna money. I mean, that's what's $80 million that he just kind of doesn't have. I mean, winning lottery ticket.
Right.
So,
right.
I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with Logan. Like, talking to him last year, I know Adam wrote a story on it, and I've talked to Logan about it. He's always said he wants what's fair, but what players and agency feel is fair might not be the same as what organizations do.
So in terms of Donovan, if we're just going to pivot a little bit here and looking at some other options the Mariners will be targeting and reportedly are targeting, do you view him as a needle mover? Could they be better with him than Polanco?
I mean, the like the peripheral or the basic numbers, your standard numbers and stuff, like you're looking at, you're like, no. I mean, like, you're just not seeing. I mean, I don't know how you measure impact for teams. Might measure it differently. They all have their own internal metrics they use to evaluate hitters. But on the basic numbers, even the more typically used analytics, it doesn't look like he's a better overall hitter. OBP is okay, but like, you don't see the power numbers. And I haven't looked at the StatCast numbers to really say that, but what he is still represents an upgrade that can play and handle both positions and does give you some insurance. Like, if Cole struggles again, or if Ben struggles, or Colt goes into spring training and doesn't perform and, can't break the camp, like, that's what you have is you have a guy that's at least establishing to handle it. So one of those positions isn't, being filled by a struggling rookie. I mean, like, what they had to do with Cole Young last year, where they played him against all those lefties last year, I thought that was pretty unfair for a rookie. I mean, he had to take ABs against that Morhan guy from the Padres.
Yeah.
I mean, that was cruelty. Yeah. That guy's filthy. Yeah. That Morhan guy got to face 3 lefties in a row in a game. Like, when has that ever happened for him ever? Right. So I like, is he a good player? He is absolutely a good player. I don't know that, like, the level of impact that he provides would be the same as Polanco. But he also wouldn't, you're not DHing him probably as much as Polanco either. Like, that's the thing is, like, if you sign Donovan or if you trade for Donovan, I think they have to reassess and look at maybe adding another guy that fits more of a typical DH role, whether it's a right-handed bat or whatever that has a little bit more pop. I'm not saying it's, so it's got to automatically be a first baseman, but there's some outfield types or whatever. Or maybe get creative and look at moving one of your other guys. Because right now, like, if they sign Donovan, you're assuming that, Luke Raley will be the DH most days when there's a right-handed pitcher?
Right, and then what happens when there's a lefty on the mound? Because Donovan doesn't hit lefties, Raley doesn't hit lefties, Canzone doesn't hit lefties, yeah.
Yeah, you're in a weird spot there. So, I guess Canzone will be DHing quite a bit too. So, like, I don't know, like, they're very left-handed. It's kind of funny in a lot of ways. Getting a right-handed bat maybe to even it out. And that's the thing too, is like maybe like they look at some of these other utility type guys that, the Willie Castros of the world that aren't maybe as impactful in a lot of different ways, but are still an upgrade over what you had. Like, I like Leo Rivas a lot. He's cheap. He's a great dude. But there are better players than Leo Rivas out there that you could turn to for, because, like, let's be honest, like, Rivas wasn't good enough to crack the team until the roster disbanded. So I think there are ways you can upgrade too. Like, everybody looks like you got to have this one main bat, whatever. But, like, go count the bats where the number of bats Dylan Moore had early in the year, or, Rivas or, like you said, having Cole Young face lefties. There are a number of at-bats throughout the course of the season where you're putting players in there that weren't outstanding or weren't even like league average, and there are upgrades available at all those spots. I mean, getting guys on your 26th guy, your last two bench spots to be more productive or better overall players is pretty significant.
My big pitch for signing or for trading for Brendan Donovan is like he's a good he's like a solid offensive player. I think that's how I'd label it. But I almost think of it less so as adding him to the lineup and more so as the complete aspect he brings. Because I feel like there's as much room for the Mariners to improve on the base paths and on defense as there is for the lineup. Do you feel that too?
Yeah, I mean, because he can play all over. And what the thing it does is, like, if you add Donovan, because he can play three positions, and two of them pretty decently, like, it frees up your roster so you're not carrying a guy that maybe you don't want to carry. I mean, they already have, like, 4 or 5 outfielders, and two of them are left-handed that don't hit left-handers. Like, that changes your math a lot. So giving somebody like Donovan may allow you to do something different with the last spot on your roster as an upgrade. Like I said, that's the difference in all of that is, like, do you want to add that guy? What if Eugenio Suarez comes to him and says, look, I'll sign a 1 year for $10 million. Would you do it? Because you could play him at third. You can play him as your DH. He's a right-handed power bat. I don't know this Chino would do that, but, there are options that way. And so I think Donovan gives you more flexibility to do different things with your roster and play different matchups than maybe you would if you have a bunch of kids out there.
So are you in the camp of they still need 2 more bats? Because TJ and I are a little split on this, so we wanted to ask you about it.
I mean, like, sure, they need to. Are they going to get to? If they get Marte, they're probably not doing much more. They might take a flyer on a guy on a bounce back here or something like that, minor league sign or a split contract. But, could they use 2 more? Sure. What they really need is Rayleigh and Robles to play like they did the year prior and not be hurt all the time, and right. Cole Young to be that guy that he was for part of the year. Like the third base thing will be very interesting of how they do that, how much they play Williamson. Like if they get Donovan, like say they trade for Donovan, when you just play Donovan at third, Cole Young at second, right-handers most days, Naylor at first. Boy, that's a really lefty-heavy JP. It's all left-handed hitting lineup pretty much, but that's your lineup. Then you have your outfielders, and it's not bad. Dom Canzone is your DH. It's not a bad group. But yeah, I mean, like, could they get 2? Yeah. Should they? I don't know. I mean, they'd have to depart with a player they'd like who's out of options and lose them if they already had 2. I guess, like, unless it's just obviously Williams is not going to be there, but if you add, so they just win the lottery and sign Alex Bregman and another guy, I guess you could do it, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'd be pretty stunned.
So what is it with this Bregman report you guys had? Like, I totally believe that, like, they reached out to the Mariners for something, but I just have a hard time believing the Mariners would ever come to the price, whether short-term or long-term, for him. Because, like, they said, we don't sign 30-plus-year-olds to long contracts, and we're not going to pay someone $40 million a year. So,
no. I mean, I think it's just Boris using the Mariners because they know they have a third base opening. It was similar to a few years ago when he really tried to push Chris Bryant on the Mariners to play third. And what was funny is Bryant told them he didn't want to play third. He didn't want to play left field. He only wanted to play first base and DH. Mariners like, well, that doesn't work for us. So, yeah, that's just posturing more than anything. But I'm sure they took the meeting or they took the call and said, okay, here's what Alex wants, and he's a good player still. But I think we're starting to see the effects of age. I don't know why he just doesn't go back to Boston. But
yeah, especially with the 2 ballparks he's hit in for his career that are super right-handed friendly. Yeah, it would make all the sense in the world. Okay, with third base and Colt Emerson specifically, what are the odds you think he truly breaks this camp on opening day? Because obviously, like, the 2 sides you have to balance here is incredibly talented, top 5 to 10 prospect in the game, depending on what outlet you look at. Less than 21 years old. The other side to it is he's played 40 games above A-ball. So how do you, what's your thought on it?
Yeah. How many did Julio play above A? He played a whole season at Double A, right?
No, actually, it's funny you bring that up. I was just looking at this morning. I think he played 50 games or slightly under in Double A before the debut.
So, when Julio came to camp that year, that was not on our radar that he was going to make the team. And when we saw him, and he trimmed down, we knew he'd trimmed down some because you saw the videos and stuff. But when you saw him in person and we watched him run around in the outfield and play, you're like, oh my God, and he was so, he was so mature in terms of his self-confidence and understanding who he was and what he was trying to do and wasn't afraid of the moment. And in his own, and Colt's not as bombastic or as brash as Julio, but in his own way, he's very self-confident. He's very process-oriented. This guy is Colt is Andy McKay and all those process guys. He's their poster child. It's one of the reasons why they drafted him is because he was so mature. So from a mental standpoint, I know he'll come in prepared and ready to compete, kind of like the way Julio did. If you're going to give me an opening, I'm just going to kick the door down and go through it. He'll do that. It's how he responds to all of it because, when you're just a guy, when you're a young guy, you have no thought of making the team, just go out and play. But then when you're competing for a spot, then you start you start looking into what you're doing versus what somebody else is doing, and that can get in your head. And I don't know. Physically too, I think he can handle third base. He's that athletic. He's got a big arm. The Rangers did this with Bobby Witt his rookie year. That's a tough comparison for Colt, but all the athletic tools say he can be that guy. So would it surprise me? No, because just being around Colt the little bit of time I have, he's so different mentally than so many of those guys. There's not an immaturity to him that even because we always joke that Cole Young calls his dude and bro and stuff all the time. Colt acts like he's 40 years old a lot of the times. He does. He reminds me of one of the Seager brothers, just how they act. It's just all business all the time.
Mm-hmm. What are the Mariners going to put on the plate of Cole Young this year?
Well, I think they're going to play him. I think they'll protect him against lefties. I don't think that, but I think they're going to give him every opportunity to just take the job and make it his own, because I'm sure, and they're tantalized. What was it, about a 1 month stretch where he was just crushing baseballs?
About
even when when he struggled, there were some swings and misses on some fastballs up and everything like that, but he still found ways to kind of put the ball in play and grind it out. Everybody runs into that for a bit, but I think they're going to I think he'll be the opening day second baseman unless something changes, and they'll let him go with it until he can't, and if he can't, then they'll send him down, reset him, and give him another chance. But the 1 month you saw is enough reason to really kind of push it, because they've done that before at second base for 1 month. Shed Long, Dylan Moore, they gave those guys a starting job too.
Mm-hmm. Why did the Mariners decide now was the time to trade Harry Ford?
I think that just finally aligned for them to trade him. I think they were realistic to what his overall market value was, because they've been basically willing to trade him for the last 2 years. I think I've said it like a dozen times, and that's not based just on my thinking, but based on people I'm talking to. But I love Harry, but where he was as a prospect didn't necessarily maybe match the hype surrounding him. I said it on one podcast, he's unbelievably athletic. He's strong. He can run. He can throw, and he can really move laterally. You watch him. What he reminds me of is a guy that just dominates the combine. But then when you put him in games, you don't necessarily see the athleticism play out, in his blocking, his receiving, his throwing, or at the plate where the power doesn't necessarily match the strength. This guy could deadlift the world, but it doesn't really translate into dingers the way it should. And you look at his swing and you kind of understand why, or even his approach. So I think while he was top 100 and had the stuff in the WBC, and the Mariners never offer no shortage of prospect hype through their social media channels, around baseball, like, because he was around a long time too, the scouts nitpicked him a ton, like, beat up on his throwing and his receiving and his blocking behind the plate and the pitch calling. And basically, like one scout said, he goes, for being as athletic as he is, he doesn't play athletic. And I remember Taylor Trammell had the same knock, and even they kind of said that about Sam Haggerty, like, for as quick and twitchy and fast as he moves, he was not a very good defensive player. Like, it didn't always translate out. It only translated out on the bases. And even then, he wasn't like a functionally smart base runner. So it's like a lot of times the most athletic guys that you're around, the athleticism just kind of carries them at the lower levels. But when you need it to play out, it doesn't happen at the MLB level, and then you can kind of become exposed. So I think that's where it was with Harry. I think the Mariners knew as well, like, once you lock up Cal, then it's okay. We have this guy, so we don't need to have this kid around. It's not helping him out. I don't think it was a coincidence that they drafted Luke Stevenson either. Luke is already better established as a defensive catcher than Harry. The batting average and on-base skills won't be as good, but the power is actually real there. So, yeah, I think they just finally, they looked at it as, instead of trying to package Harry or put him as maybe the main part of a package for a trade, they just looked at it and said, here's what we're going to get for him. This is the market, and we need to move on it now. Yeah. I know. I'm pretty certain they put him in the package for trying to get Yohan Duran. Mm-hmm. What's crazy is the Phillies went and got a catcher that doesn't really catch, but they like the hitting tool better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with that, I don't want to spend, last one I have for you, I don't want to spend too much time by any stretch talking about a backup catcher, but with the signing of Andrew Kisner and Harry Ford getting dealt away, I want to spin this more towards Cal, which I wondered if going into this year, they would start to try to get him more DH days and off his feet a little bit more. But when you sign a backup catcher like Kisner, I don't know if running him into the ground is the right word, but does this mean they are really going to put him behind the plate 130-plus games again?
I mean, he might. You never know. Like Cal never says Cal will tell him when he's tired, but he's pretty much willing to go out there every day. Mm-hmm. I wrote this because I just finished up writing the Kisner story. They're going to, because I think it was $1 million. They signed him for 1 year, $1 million. Mm-hmm. They're going to sign an experienced catcher to a minor league deal or split deal and bring them to camp too. I don't know if it's some, there's a whole bunch of them out there, the Elias Diaz's of the world or whatever it is. I don't know. They'll bring in another guy that has MLB experience that they'll tell him he has a chance to make the team, whatever, and go from there. But Hollander said they're going to sign two, one to a major league deal and one to a minor league deal. So I don't think they're just married to Kisner for the whole year at $1 million. I mean, given his service time and everything else, that's basically the minimum, because he's 7 years in. So, I mean, like, if that doesn't work, they find something else, or they decide somebody else is available. They may do that too, and they make an adjustment. But yeah, I thought there was a chance they bring back Garver. But they weren't going to go much more than $1 million or whatever for that spot, I don't think.
And last thing for me, Ryan, the Mariners had quite an injured rotation last year, and it was not the performance they really wanted. If you were to pick a guy from there that you're most confident is going to bounce back and look like their 2024 self, who would it be?
I think I'll say Kirby. Just because shoulder fatigue is different, with the short shoulder impingement. Like the flexor thing with Logan, I think is always sort of scary because then, you strain your flexor, that leads to ulnar damage and everything else and UCL. And Bryce's deal isn't going away. It's just, he's found a way to make sure that it doesn't flare up. But Kirby, there were times last year and even in the playoffs, when he's right with that little lower arm slot, he's pretty nasty, and I think he's gradually starting to understand that you don't have to throw a strike on every pitch. It's still a battle, like Evil George on one shoulder and Angel George on the other, telling him when he needs to bury a pitch and not, and deciding when it's time and when he'll do it. I think he's more willing to try and understand how to pitch that doesn't involve this pumping strikes at all times. I think he's stubborn, and sometimes that gets to him, but I think he has a chance to be really, really good. Logan, I think Logan's just going to be good. I didn't know. It's really weird, though, how many splitters he threw last year. You wonder if that's good for the flexor tendon either, but I'll say George. That's my guess.
Ryan, it's great as always to have you on here. You provide some of the best information we'll have, and we'll look forward to seeing you down at spring training, where it's a lot warmer than it'll be in Montana for the next couple of months, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it anyways.
Yeah, I heard that Lulu is making like 3-inch shorts now for the inseam, so Lyle will be ready to get those.
Boom, right at the end.
Yes.
Well, good stuff as always from Ryan. Let's just dive into it. What did he say that jumped out to you the most?
As always with our conversations with him, it regards trading starters, because whenever he's really kicked up the hornet's nest with us, it's trading someone off the current roster. And I feel like the storyline of trading a Logan Gilbert or a George Kirby gets swept under the rug a little bit based off of the season the Mariners just had, and that they're in a contention window. And contenders don't usually trade some of the best players on their team. But, there's a possibility of it boiling down to the finish line of, say, a Ketel Marte trade, and the Diamondbacks are like, all right, we will do George Kirby for Ketel Marte 1-for-1. Or maybe George Kirby and, heartbreakingly, our guy Logan Evans for Ketel Marte.
Or it could be Kirby and a minor league prospect. That's a really good prospect.
Could be Durangelo. So Kirby and Durangelo for 5 years of Ketel Marte at $92 million total.
Well, and honestly, Tage, like, the Diamondbacks don't have to trade him. With 5 years of control,
no,
they might ask for a lot. They might say Kirby and Kate Anderson for Ketel.
They could. At that point, do you sit there and say, is this worth it? And the premise Ryan uses is you're trading these guys if you know you can't get an extension done with them. If you already know at this point that you cannot get George Kirby to put pen to paper and sign an extension with you, then either this offseason or next offseason, if you want real substantial value back for him, you're going to have to trade him. And next offseason, you're not going to get that much of a chance because there's going to be a lockout.
Yeah.
And you will get maximum 5 weeks from the end of the World Series to when the CBA expires. The CBA expires December 1st, so I'll say 4 weeks. Like, that's how long you would get to trade him. And some teams know, it's like, why am I giving up this amount of capital now when I know you're going to be more desperate to move him once this thing gets figured out?
Right.
So, like, that's the situation the Mariners are in right now. And the same applies for Logan Gilbert, but with one less year of control.
Yeah. And again, man, I know Ketel changes everything if you acquire him, because he's a top 10 hitter in the sport. That's an objective fact by WRC Plus. We've talked about it. Top 10 hitter in the sport each of the last 2 years. There's two sides to this. There is that the best possible outcome you could get with an eventual George Kirby trade if he's not going to sign an extension? The answer to that might be yes, in terms of the talent of the player you could get back. The other side to it is, we didn't go too deep into it with Divish. I mean, TJ mentioned it briefly. But again, we mentioned it on one of our last couple podcasts. We'll do it here again. The stuff we heard about Ketel at the winter meetings was just, it was a lot of red flags. It was a lot of, yeah, I wouldn't exactly jump at the bit to trade for this guy. And I can't help but shake that. When somebody's that good and they're saying, yeah, I wouldn't be that antsy about it.
And you have none of those issues with your two starting pitchers, who are consummate locker room guys, leaders. Well, actually, I mean, they fit right in. There's no issues pretty much at all. But with Ketel, what Divish was saying was, is your culture strong enough to overcome that? Do you have enough leaders? You have Cal, you have Julio, you have Randy. Are these guys solidified enough where it doesn't really matter if Ketel is going to operate somewhat differently, because overall as a collective unit, it's strong enough?
You might have left out the most important leader of that group for this specific situation.
Josh Naylor.
Josh Naylor. A Ketel Marte trade may hinge on him in terms of coming to Seattle. Because if Josh Naylor, in his time with Ketel Marte with the Diamondbacks, when, as Divish mentioned, saw all the stuff go down with Ketel taking days off and not communicating with the team. And again, for all we know, there could be more to that. From the conversations we had, it sounded like maybe there is more to the whole Marte internal turmoil stuff than what's public. But with all that, if Naylor says, I really liked playing with him, that stuff got overblown, I think he'd fit our team great, then the Mariners are much more inclined. If Naylor says, I could not stand playing with that guy, and I think he can kill a locker room and kill a clubhouse, Mariners probably aren't making the trade. Because I bet you, Divish said the same thing, and we've talked about it, I bet you the Mariners are absolutely calling Josh Naylor to ask him his thoughts on Ketel Marte before they execute a trade.
The frustrating part of this is if you're going to trade one of those guys and you're thinking about potential guys you could get back that are better, the only one I could think of that's better than Ketel Marte that might be available is Francisco Lindor, but we don't even know if he's available, really. And on top of that, Ketel is making less than $100 million over the next 5 years. Francisco Lindor's owed over $200 million.
It's a lot, but he's probably a future Hall of Famer.
Sure, and Ketel might be too. Or at least a Hall of Very Good.
Yeah, Ketel's probably not at that level, at least yet. He'd need a few more really good years. Lindor, he's going to be a Hall of Famer if this all keeps up.
That's the only person I could think of that might be available in the trade block that would be better than getting Ketel Marte back, even with all of the red flags.
Yeah. And
so,
even with...
is your clubhouse strong enough to handle something like that? That's something the Mariners will ultimately decide if they're going to trade a starter. The biggest one for me, man, the biggest swing in all of this, we talked about George Kirby. Logan Gilbert's another year closer to free agency, and it doesn't sound as much, at least right now, that him and the Mariners are anywhere near an extension, right? And if the Mariners want something substantial back for Logan Gilbert, this is the offseason to do it. But the problem is, Logan Gilbert could also be your best starter next year. So, what's worth it? What is worth it? Is it worth it to trade and get maximum value for Logan Gilbert right now? Or have him be your best starter in a year where you need to contend and go make it and win a World Series?
I think with Logan, it might have to be one of those ones where you just ride with him until free agency if he never signs the extension. If you traded Logan Gilbert this winter, how does your clubhouse respond? As Divish mentions, how does your catcher and best player respond to his favorite pitcher being dealt?
Betrayed.
Yeah. I don't think you can't do that. I won't even say I don't think you can't do that with Gilbert.
No. And I agree. If that's what the cost is for Ketel Marte, I'm out. And there are arguments to be made that you're not a better team adding Ketel Marte and subtracting Logan Gilbert. Right. Because you would think with a full healthy season of Logan Gilbert, gets his mechanics a little more back in order and he gets a little bit more consistent, that he would be an all-star pitcher. And yeah, Ketel might be an all-star hitter, but he'd be an all-star hitter that's trending towards being a DH, while Logan Gilbert would be an all-star pitcher trending towards throwing over 200 innings, which are it's different workloads for the two of them. And Ketel has those red flags, which Logan does not.
And if you're not trading Logan this winter, you're riding with him until free agency, because a year left with Logan Gilbert on his deal, that becomes the Corbin Burns trade. And again, look what the Orioles got back for Corbin Burns. It was not substantial. It wasn't terrible, but it was prospects. It was prospects that were not Colt Emerson types. So if you're not trading him this winter, which you should not in any way, then you're riding with him till free agency.
There's not a package back you could get for him, and I think that would convince most of the clubhouse that it would be an okay trade. Unless you're getting Ronald Acuna,
who, by the way, didn't even have a very good year last year.
No. Juan Soto, but you can't afford that. So,
yeah.
It's...
Now, like Divish said, the Cal extension kind of came about. What did Divish say? He said he had heard from Cal that talks had started, but it kind of came out onto the scene. I don't want to say unexpectedly, but
quickly.
Yeah, it came together decently fast. That could happen with Logan. Let's not totally belittle that. There could be a Logan extension that gets done before the start of the year that nobody really sees coming. But right now, it doesn't seem like anything's imminent.
And Divish laid it out in the interview, and Logan lives in Orlando. How far is Orlando from Seattle?
Well, as we just experienced, it's about as far as you can get.
Maybe eventually, if the money will talk, but we know Logan's from Florida. He's an East Coast guy. And the same thing applies to Kirby. So the guys that prefer being closer to family, being closer to things they're more familiar with, and are able to use is the wrong word, but play in Seattle to have their numbers look really good, and the ballpark is really good. It's very favorable to pitchers, and you get a huge payday in free agency. And these guys look and they see what Dylan Cease just got. $210 million. Dylan Cease is a really good starting pitcher. How many good years did Dylan Cease have? 2?
Well, I think you're starting to see a lot of front offices not use ERAs as a very serious indicator for what a pitcher is worth. Because Dylan Cease had a 4.5 ERA this past year. Everything under the hood said he was really good, and he still got the money.
And that applies to Kirby and Gilbert. I mean, Kirby has got the command. Gilbert has as good swing and miss stuff as any starter in Major League Baseball. And teams bank on that playing out long-term over ERA or home run numbers or something like that. So Logan Gilbert gives up a $130 million extension from the Mariners for the potential to make $200 million in 2 years in free agency. So we'll see. Yeah. But the other risk for Logan is that if they miss games in 2027, teams are not going to be lining up to pay him $200 million, unless it's the Dodgers. But the Dodgers starters are all under contract. So where's there a spot to pay him $200 million in L.A.?
Yeah, and that's not exactly the East Coast either, if that's what he's looking for.
So it's is it the Mets or bust for both of them? Because I'll tell you this for Logan, he's not getting a contract of $200 million from the Rays or Marlins, that's for sure.
Could it be the Braves?
Could be the Braves. That would be about as close as you could get.
With a competitive team, yeah.
But the Braves aren't big free agency players either. Even though they offered Edwin Diaz 5 years.
Yeah. Well,
it must have been 5 for a very lower amount.
Right. And they just gave Robert Suarez a pretty decent deal as a closer.
This is fair. But $45 million, it was 45 for Suarez?
Yeah, over 3, which again, for a reliever, there's a voice crack. For a reliever is close to top of the market.
But if they're going to go top of the market with Logan Gilbert, we're talking that Cease extension is the start, or that Cease contract is the starter.
Yeah.
And the Braves gave out a $200 million contract to Austin Riley, and that's it.
Yeah.
They've given out some other big deals, but not that much.
It's true.
So
yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. There's a lot up in the air right now. There's no doubt.
So it doesn't sound like the Mariners right now are going to trade any one of their starters for Ketel Marte. If that's the drop dead price for Ketel, I think the Mariners walk away.
I do too. And again, we'll go back to the report that Nick Pecoro put out from the Arizona Republic. What was talked about between the Rays and Diamondbacks was the Diamondbacks getting Ryan Pepio, my guy, and Shane Baz. It's 2 big league starters who have had real success and are young and controllable. I don't know if the Mariners want to give that up.
Yeah. Nope. But there's another potential option you could go for. It sounds like he's available that we'll talk about on Friday's episode. It might be a lot cheaper. Nico Horner.
Yeah.
I would listen to Friday's episode because there is a lot to like about him. Doesn't come with as many red flags and will make you very, very, very good.
And let me give this as a sales pitch in addition to that for people to listen on Nico Horner. He is much more exciting as a player than you're probably going to give him credit for at face value. Much, much more exciting. I'll even say borderline game changer. So if you need a reason to tune in for Friday, we'll explain why.
Or let me just leave you with this. He might be better than Ketel Marte.
It's a pretty good sales pitch.
Stay tuned and find out.
Yeah. All right, that just about wraps up this edition of the Marine Layer Podcast. You guys know the drill. If you want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure you're downloading. Please rate and review. Leave it 5 stars. It really does help us out if you do. Go like, comment, subscribe over on YouTube. It's the best way to support the channel. You guys can see the red subscribe button on YouTube. Just take a second to click it. You get notified whenever we're posting new content. Again, it really does help if you do. Go leave a like on this video, drop a comment, all that good stuff. You can check everything out over at our website as well, marinelayerpod.com, from our merch to our Patreon. It's all over there. And then you can follow us across social media at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.